Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Wednesdays across the country, or the world, wherever you may be. My name is Clay Travis. This is Outkick the Show. We do this every afternoon. We come, we hang, we talk, we converse, we chat about all the issues of the world and beyond. I guess it would be hard to be beyond the world unless we were talking about Mars. Interesting story out of Mars about methane, whether or not there might be life there. Just reading about that earlier today. I'm intrigued by it, but we have a lot of stories to get to. And I want to start with this Joe Biden apology, which just went up online. If you haven't seen it, I just retweeted it. You can go watch it. He's apologizing for invading people's personal space as we have now reached the edge of Me Too. We've now reached the edge of Me Too, where if you give somebody a hug, or if you console them, or if you're too close to them in their personal space, that is now unacceptable. The revolution of Me Too starting to feed upon itself, but I actually think this is good for Joe Biden. I'll explain why as I analyze this situation. Stephen A. Smith, reportedly, according to the New York Post, headed to a $10 million a year payday, potentially $8 to $10 million to be fair. Buzz Williams to A&M, what that says about the stature and status of the SEC as a basketball conference. ESPN debating Jordan versus LeBron James, even though Jordan hasn't played in 15 years and LeBron James's season is already over. I ask an interesting question. Who are the people begging for Jordan versus LeBron James to happen? And Russell Wilson demands a new contract by April 15th. Tax day. Maybe he's got a big tax bill that's going to be due. What does he think is going to happen there? What do I think is going to happen there? And what is the stature and status going forward of the Seattle Seahawks? Is this a big deal, small deal? Why is it going public right now? We start with Joe Biden, all right? I believe that this entire Joe Biden story is a huge nothing burger, to steal a phrase from the Obama White House. Now, some people out there get triggered and they get upset because they are partisan. And whatever happens, they immediately see through the lens of partisan politics. And I am the opposite of that. I made a living in the world of sports by being the most reasonable person in the world of sports. Coming out of the SEC, where everybody else is insane, I was the guy who'd take a step back and look at it and say, let's actually analyze this from a logical perspective. I believe this is actually a net benefit to Joe Biden. And the reason why I believe this story is going to be a net benefit to Joe Biden is it proves how far left-wing and crazy the Democratic Party has become. Let me explain something to you here. I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, Joe Biden is the best candidate that the Democrats can put forward to beat Donald Trump. Let's strip everything down to its essence. Is your goal to virtue signal and to social justice warrior and to make a tiny segment of the population, the far left wing on social media, happy? Or is your goal to beat Donald Trump? If the Democratic Party's goal is to beat Donald Trump, if you nominate Joe Biden, he will beat Donald Trump. Period. You can argue with me, you can disagree with me, but Joe Biden wins back Pennsylvania, he wins back Michigan, and he wins back Wisconsin, and the race is over. Nothing else would matter, okay? Trump would lose those 3 states to Biden, and Biden would win the election, and he might win the election running away with it, okay? He is the best possible candidate the Democrats can put forward. He wins the election. You can disagree with me. You can be triggered. You can be totally partisan in your analysis, as I'm sure many in the comments will be. But the truth is, from a purely logical, reasonable, realistic looking perspective, Donald Trump gets beat by Joe Biden. He loses, period. Okay? And so, Joe Biden is actually in a great spot right now as he prepares to enter into the race. And the reason why he's in a great spot is because you have all these nincompoops competing for the far left. Usually the primary is about locking in the base, and the base tends to be in the Democratic Party far left, and the base tends to be in the Republican Party far right. And so there is a battle in the primary process whereby you have to go out and convince your base in the primary that you are the most reliable, and then the general election is typically a race to the middle. I think what's happening right now is the Democrats are all racing to be far left. They're arguing they're in favor of reparations. They're arguing that we have to scrap the existing entire healthcare universe. They're arguing in favor of universal income and all these other free college, all these crazy socialist outcomes. And Bernie Sanders is over there, and Kamala Harris is fighting with him over there, and you've got and Elizabeth Warren, all these people in a knife fight on the far left trying to prove that they're the most progressive member of the Democratic caucus. And I think there are a lot of reasonable people out there that are sitting around saying, well, that's great. You guys can go fight. But I like this mayor from South Bend, Indiana, whose name I can't even pronounce, Pete Buttigieg, or however you pronounce his name, who's a reasonable dude, right? There actually is a huge space for reasonableness in this country, and Joe Biden fills that reasonable void right now. And as a result, he is being attacked. I think this was 100% leaked by Bernie Sanders. I think Kamala Harris, I think they're all out there scrambling to say, oh my God, Joe Biden gave me a hug and kissed the top of my head, and it made me so uncomfortable. This is a Me Too violation, okay? If Me Too is going to be extended to include rape, sexual assault, and uncomfortable hugs in public settings, that ain't Me Too anymore, right? And this happened about a year ago or 2 years ago. Do you remember when Matt Damon came out in Hollywood and he said, look, there's a big difference between rape and grabbing a girl's butt. Do you remember that? And Hollywood lost their mind, and his old co-star Minnie Driver was like, Matt Damon, there is no difference between rape and grabbing a girl's butt. And Matt Damon was like, look, it's both inappropriate behavior, but it's a question of degree. And then he had to step back and apologize because he was utterly reasonable, and he said something utterly reasonable, and we were in the midst of a totally unreasonable era. That is what the era that we are in has led to, right? Where you suddenly lose the ability to make gradations and nuance doesn't exist. That's how Robespierre ends up getting decapitated during the French Revolution, because ultimately all revolutions turn on themselves and they end up being purity contests over who among the revolutionaries is the most pure. Instead of fighting external forces and people who are allied against you, it always turns internal and ends up being a bloodbath. What Joe Biden needs to do is step out of the way and use this to inoculate himself from the crazy loons on the far left of the Democratic Party and say, look, these guys can all have their purity tests and fight amongst themselves over who is the most socially just. What I'm concerned about is winning an election. We know, I'm speaking as if I'm Joe Biden. If I were advising Joe Biden right now, I'd be saying, look, you're trying to beat Donald Trump. You're not trying to prove that reparations should exist when 20% of the American population believes in reparations, right? Don't fight that stupid battle. Start to run against Donald Trump from the moment you start your campaign. You are running to beat Donald Trump. You're not running to beat Kamala Harris. You're not running to beat Bernie Sanders. You're not running to beat those people. You are running to beat Donald Trump. And if I were advising Joe Biden, what I would tell him over and over and over again is to steal a line that Newt Gingrich used all the time in the primaries that Ronald Reagan made popular with Republicans. And basically he would always say, my pledge to you is I will speak no ill will of the people that I am running against. Rise above the people that you are running against and make yourself the clear front runner. If I were Joe Biden in my announcement speech, I would advise him to say, look, there are a lot of great Democrats running for office here. Many of them are younger. Many of them are tapped into audiences and networks that I don't connect with. But what I have is 38 years of experience in the Senate, 8 years of experience as the vice president, and I have the ability to run this country better than Donald Trump. Rather than run against Democrats, I am going to, from the day I start my campaign, run against Donald Trump, because I think that's the most important thing we can do in this country is beat Donald Trump. And I am running my campaign not to beat any Democrat, but to beat Donald Trump. If you guys decide that you like another Democrat other than me, I will support them, but I'm not going to spend my time turning my fire on other Democrats and emboldening and strengthening Donald Trump. I am running from the day I announce to beat Donald Trump. If you want to pick somebody who's going to beat other Democrats, you have that right. My goal is with 100% fervor to beat Donald Trump. Now, that's his play. That's how I would advise him to run if I were a political analyst being paid by the Biden campaign. Now, he has to rise above the mess and the muck that is going to exist in all the craziness of the primary season. All right? Now, here is the larger context. In so doing, he inoculates himself from getting dragged into the crazy left-wing antics of his party. And he appears statesmanlike in an era where I believe the single greatest weakness that Donald Trump has in getting elected in 2020 is there are a lot of middle-of-the-road voters who would like a more statesman-like president, who are tired of the perpetual scandal-mongering that is going on, who would like to just be able to sit back and take a breather. And I think that is Joe Biden's best pitch. I will return normalcy to the White House. Whether you like me or not, it will be a lot like it has been in the past. I will be like Reagan. I will be like Bush Sr. I will be like Obama. Not so much like Clinton and not so much like Trump, who were perpetual scandal machines, right? George W. Bush as well. And so I think there is a craving for that. Typically, the electorate doesn't pick someone who outs somebody else's. Let me explain that. You don't beat Donald Trump by being more angry than Donald Trump, in my opinion. In my opinion, you beat Donald Trump by saying, you know what? I think Donald Trump has done some good things for the country. I think the economy has done really well. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think I can do better. I don't think Donald Trump is a bad guy. I just think I can do better is how Democrats win the election. They don't win the election by saying Donald Trump is a Nazi. They don't win the election by saying Donald Trump is evil. They don't win the election by arguing that Donald Trump is everything that the left wing on social media wants to brand him as. They win the election by saying, I don't think Donald Trump has done that bad of a job. I just think I can do better. Period. That's how you win the general election. And so if I'm Biden, I start to run from the get-go. Back in 1992, Bill Clinton ran a masterful campaign. Should be studied by everyone. 96 was easier. 92 was an absolute masterpiece of presidential campaigning. Probably the single best campaign that has been run in my life. How did Bill Clinton win? Well, one, he got the benefit of Ross Perot running, which helped to dilute the vote and took votes away from George Bush Sr. and brought them to his side. But Bill Clinton won by being more reasonable and connecting better with the electorate than George Bush Sr. did. He made Bush Sr. seem old and out of touch. How did he do that? Partly by starting his triangulation theory earlier. He had a great masterful moment during the primaries where he came out and he ripped a rapper named Sister Souljah. If you're a young person right now and you're interested at all in politics, Google Bill Clinton and Sister Souljah. It was right in the early days of the campaign. Bill Clinton was just now starting to get known nationwide, and rap music was just rising into ascendancy. And Sister Souljah had these crazy, unbelievable at the time lyrics that basically advocated for beating up cops, shooting them, all these different things. And Bill Clinton came out and said, I'm a different kind of Democrat. I don't think those kind of lyrics are helpful in any way. And he gained the moderate and the middle of the road voter. Now, back in the day, Clinton was able to win Arkansas. He was able to win Tennessee. He was able to compete in the South because the Southern Democratic Party had not yet collapsed. Okay? So as you break that down, think about the opportunity here that Joe Biden has presented to him. By repudiating these charges and rising above them, he is inoculating himself, first of all, from all these pictures and everything else. And I'm not of the opinion that you should not be elected president because you rubbed somebody on the shoulders and kissed their head and said you liked the way their hair smelled. If that's your standard for inappropriate behavior, to me, that's a ridiculous standard. You should be able to run for president so long as you have not committed a serious crime of violence, in my opinion, right? That's my opinion. Otherwise, if you have the leadership skills and you have the ability to connect with the American public, I don't care about anything else. I always thought this controversy over whether Obama was born in America or not was stupid because I think the idea that you have to be born in America to be elected president in America is insanely dumb. I don't agree with that provision of the Constitution. I don't agree with lots of things that are commonplace in this country. But if the American public wants to elect Elon Musk president of the United States because he makes the best, runs the best political campaign, why would we not be able to elect him just because he was born in a different country? It doesn't make any sense to me, and we tacitly acknowledge how absurd it is because we have these exemptions built in. Oh, well, John McCain wasn't born in America, but he was born on an American military base. Why does it matter where he was born? If he can get the most votes or the most electoral votes to be elected president, period, he should be eligible. I think, he or she. I don't care about where you're born, right? I think that if you put forward the best case to be elected president of the United States, you will win. In 2016, Trump did. And how did he do it? By flipping Michigan, by flipping Pennsylvania, by flipping Ohio, and by flipping Wisconsin. What's the best way to beat Trump in 2020? By nominating a candidate who can go win in Wisconsin, who can go win in Ohio, who can go win in Pennsylvania, and who can go win in Michigan. I think that is Joe Biden. The reason why he's getting attacked so vociferously right now is because all these Democrats are nervous that he has such great poll standing and he hasn't even had to enter the race yet. That, to me, is a sign that Biden can run against Trump from the moment he announces. That's why I think it's smart to wait as long as you possibly can to announce. Don't get dragged down into the muck. Be statesmanlike. Run above it. Okay, that is the way that I would break down this latest Joe Biden controversy. It is, in my mind, a nothing burger. Okay, bunch of other things that I want to hit. Stephen A. potentially going to get $10 million a year. I love it. New York Post has an article up by Andrew Marchand saying that Stephen A. now is being represented by Mark Shapiro at Endeavor, and that Shapiro is telling him he should make $8 to $10 million a year. I love it. A lot of people want to rip Stephen A. He obviously makes mistakes. He's not perfect, but he's a damn good entertainer. And this is something that's drastically underrated by people out there who work in the media universe and also by, I think, fans in general. Tonnage matters. How much work you do, how much content you do matters a great deal in this era. How good can you be in a variety of different mediums? Stephen A. is good on television. He's good on radio. He was good in the past at writing. Being good at connecting across a variety of mediums is both hard, overwhelming, and draining work. Your boy here, 3 hours every morning from 5 to 8 a.m. my time. Me doing a show by myself. Your boy here, coming, sitting on Facebook and Twitter, connecting with you guys for 30 minutes every afternoon. Your boy here, about to go on television on FS1 and go do another hour. That's 4.5 hours of live media content on a variety of different perspectives that you guys get every day. There ain't many people doing that. I know it's trendy to attack Colin Cowherd, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, all those guys who go out and produce consistent, impressive amounts of content and opinion. Those guys are worth their weight in gold. Colin Cowherd's worth $10 million a year. Stephen A. Smith is worth $10 million a year. There aren't very many of them, and I appreciate and respect anybody who can get on the grind. Another one I'd give you, Dan Le Batard. There aren't very many people who can grind every single day and produce original, great content. Shout out to them. They are not overpaid because you can look at the ratings that they produce. You can look at the revenue that they produce from an advertiser perspective. $10 million a year for Stephen A. seems to me to be very easy to justify based on the amount of hours of content that he's giving ESPN every single day. Give shout out to Dan Patrick, too. Does a lot of work as well. I hope Stephen A. gets $10 million a year. I'm not one of those guys who's going to be like, oh my God, this guy in my industry doesn't deserve the money that he's getting. Some people will say that, right? Some people will attack a $10 million a year guy. I want everybody to make as much money as possible. Just like if I am Russell Wilson, which I'm going to get to in a minute, a rising tide lifts all boats. If Stephen A. gets $10 million a year, one day I want to get $10 million a year too. He's a decade older than me. When I'm 50, if I'm still grinding, still working, still living, I hope I'm a $10 million a year guy. So that is my take on Stephen A. Smith. I'm rooting for you, big man. Get as much money as you can. Russell Wilson has said that he wants a new contract by April 15th or going to be major issues with the Seahawks. Now, I think this is Russell Wilson coming out and saying, I'm the 12th highest paid quarterback in the NFL right now. I have 1 year left on my contract. You guys need to make me either the highest paid or close to the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I expect $30 million a year coming off the season that I just had. You traded away all the Legion of Boom members. This is now my team, and this is my franchise, and I deserve a $100 million plus contract. I think that Russell Wilson is going to get around $130 million over 5 years. That would be my over-under number, $130 million over 5 years. I think he is going to make a ton of money. More power to him. I think it makes a lot of sense to get that deal done. All right. Additional thoughts here. A couple of additional comments. Buzz Williams to Texas A&M. I don't think I've talked about this yet. Buzz Williams to Texas A&M, incredibly fantastic hire. Credit to Woodward and the A&M Brain Trust over the moves that they have made. I love Jimbo Fisher as their head coach in football. I love Buzz Williams as their head coach in basketball. This is one of the best coaching tandems, I believe, for football and men's basketball in the entire country. Why is this such a good move? Why is it happening? Two reasons. One, the media and by and large the public as well has not recognized overall how important the impact is of the SEC network dollars rolling in to the school coffers. The SEC network is cashing in $15 million plus every year, rolling in money. That's before the CBS deal gets redone or sold to a new network. The SEC is minting money right now. And instead of just being able to spend money on football coaches, they are now running out and spending big money on basketball coaches. I like the Nate Oates hire at Alabama. I like the hire at Texas A&M even more. I think what is happening is you are seeing the dollars become so substantial that schools are starting to compete not just in football, but compete in a big way in men's basketball. For a long time, Kentucky had men's basketball by itself. They were the only school that really cared about men's basketball. Everybody else was obsessed with what was going on in the larger universe of football. This is a great move. I love it for A&M. Buzz Williams will get A&M advancing well into the NCAA tournament. The good thing about basketball is it's also unlike football in that your goal is to have a really competitive conference, get as many teams into the NCAA tournament as possible, and then you typically don't play against a rival conference team until the Sweet 16. So basketball is different than football, where in football everybody's knocking each other out because only 4 teams get to advance to the playoff. Almost everybody can make it. Almost everybody can make it in the world of basketball. So I think it's a smart play. I love the move by A&M. I think it's a high-end hire, and I think the SEC in general is increasing the overall quality of their coaching hires. Reports are, and it may have already happened or will be happening soon, that Eric Musselman is now the focal point of the Arkansas Razorback search. I think that would be a very good hire. We'll see what Vanderbilt does. I'm not necessarily sold on the idea of Jerry Stackhouse, but it's a big risk, big swing, big potential payoff. By the way, Nick Zeppos out as the chancellor at Vanderbilt starting in August. Really good dude, law school professor. I think he did a good job in general at Vanderbilt, but I'm curious who they're going to hire. That's a little bit of a tricky job to roll into. First year AD, new chancellor. It's a little bit challenging right there to figure out exactly how all of that is going to shake out. So those are all my thoughts in so many of these different subjects. I think I hit everything except for this one. I got a question for you. And this is an ironic point because I'm commenting on the topic without commenting on the topic itself. ESPN debated LeBron James versus Michael Jordan today. It's, I believe, April 3rd, right? LeBron has been out of the league now, not playing for a week or so. And you also have Michael Jordan, who's not been in the league for 15 years. Who are the people out there? I understand why Jordan versus LeBron is debated. It's because it's made Skip Bayless filthy rich. It's made Stephen A. filthy rich. It's made Shannon Sharp filthy rich. There's an entire cottage industry of people who all they do is give their opinion on Michael Jordan versus LeBron James 365 days a year. Who are the people who actually are craving this content? Because they must be seeing numbers that every time they talk Michael Jordan versus LeBron James, the numbers go up. But my question in general is not about the debate, because you can debate Pete Rose getting into the Hall of Fame, whatever it is. We had a huge list of fun, like overplayed topics. For instance, should you pay college athletes? Things that will work every time you bring them up on a show. But if you are the host, at some point they become mind-numbingly boring because you're basically making the same argument all the time. If you notice on a show like this, I try to be reactive to whatever the biggest stories are of the day. It's very rare that I come on and I have a conversation with you about something that could happen on any day, right? My radio show reacts to whatever the news of the day is. On my TV show, we react to whatever the news of the gambling day is. On this show, I react to whatever the news of the day is. That can be frustrating at times because you feel like you're constantly reacting to the most immediate news. But my question for you is, who are the people out there that are debating all the time and put on television and they say, I want to see Stephen A. Smith debate Michael Jordan versus LeBron James for the 900th consecutive day? Who are the people who want to see Skip Bayless do that? And I don't mean at the end of a year, right? Like at the end of a year when LeBron has gone out and won another championship and you can categorize it. Who are the people that are so dumb that they want to see the same arguments happen again and again and again? I understand. That's like watching the same movie again and again and again. It's very childlike to me. I understand that my 4-year-old wants to watch the new Spider-Man, which is actually a phenomenal movie. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, we have probably watched conservatively in my house in the last month 1,000 times. Children like to see the same thing over and over again because their minds are young and undeveloped, and they still take great joy in seeing the same thing over and over again. But who are the adults? It must be just a collection of really dumb people who have the memories of goldfish and can't remember or realize that they are watching the same thing in repetition over and over and over again. It's mind-numbing. I would love to see the data. I'd love to see the demographic breakdown. Did any of these people go to college? Did any of them have a graduate degree? Do any of them have an IQ over 100? I find it's hard to believe that the answer to any of those is yes. I appreciate all of you. My name is Clay Travis. I got to go do my television show. You can watch me on FS1. I will be live there with Lock It In for the next hour from 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern, 3:30 to 4:30 Central, 2:30 to 3:30 Mountain, 1:30 to 2:30 Pacific. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. If you enjoyed it, share it with your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, share it with even more of your friends. All advertising is good advertising. Remember, DBAP unless you need to SBAP. My name is Clay. This has been Outkick the Show. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. See you.